Have you ever felt the crushing weight of mockery and rejection, leaving you voiceless in a world that refuses to hear? Today's story delves into that silent agony, but carries within it a powerful message about courage, authenticity, and how a single voice speaking truth can transform even the most hardened heart. For in our deepest wounds often lie our greatest gifts, if only we find the courage to share them. Lily Matthews clutched her notebook to her chest, the worn edges digging into her palm as she pressed herself against the cool metal of the hallway lockers. 11 years old and already well versed in the art of invisibility, she kept her eyes down, focusing on her scuffed brown shoes while the stream of seventh graders flowed around her like water around a forgotten stone. The bell had rung 7 minutes ago. 7 minutes of relative safety before Miss Harriet's English class would begin, and with it the inevitable moment when Vanessa Pierce would claim her unofficial throne at the back of the classroom. The hallway thinned out as students disappeared into classrooms. Lily took a deep breath and peeled herself from the lockers, her fingers tracing the familiar dent on the cover of her songwriting notebook, the result of Vanessa knocking it from her hands last month, sending it skidding across the cafeteria floor, where Jeremy Collins had stomped on it for good measure. Inside that notebook lived fragments of Lily's soul, lyrics born from sleepless nights and tear-stained pillows, melodies that played in her head when reality became too sharp-edged to bear. "Well, if it isn't Silent Lily," came the honeyed voice that haunted Lily's nightmares. "Still carrying around your little diary of secrets." Vanessa materialized beside her, designer shoes squeaking against the polished linoleum, the scent of expensive perfume hanging in the air between them. At 12 years old, Vanessa already wielded popularity like a weapon, her golden hair falling in perfect waves, her smile dazzling everyone but those who had felt its cruelty. "It's just homework," Lily mumbled, tightening her grip on the notebook. The worn beige sweater she wore, a hand-me-down from her older cousin, suddenly felt too large, too shabby beside Vanessa's coordinated outfit. "Homework? Please. Everyone knows you write your pathetic little songs in there." Vanessa's fingers darted out, quick as a snake, snatching at the corner of the notebook. "Why don't you let us hear one? I'm sure they're absolutely amazing." The mocking laughter that followed her words burned like acid in Lily's stomach. She pulled the notebook closer, hunching her shoulders, wishing for the millionth time that she could disappear completely. "Leave her alone, Vanessa," came a quiet voice. Thomas Reed stood a few feet away, his dark eyes serious behind wire-rimmed glasses. At 12, he was tall for his age, all awkward angles and uncombed hair, but there was something steady in his presence that made Lily's racing heart slow, just a fraction. "Mind your own business, Four Eyes," Vanessa snapped, but she stepped back, her attention diverted by the arrival of Miss Harriet at the classroom door. "Thanks," Lily whispered as they filed into class, but Thomas just shrugged, sliding into his seat 2 rows ahead. The notebook remained clutched in Lily's hands throughout the morning, her lifeline in a sea of indifference. Only at lunch did she dare to open it, tucking herself into the farthest corner of the library where the tall shelves created a fortress of words around her. Here, in this haven of dust motes and silence, she let her guard down enough to write. "When you look at me, what do you see? A shadow, a ghost, a nobody. But if you listened, really listened, you might hear the song inside of me." The words flowed from her pencil, halting at first, then rushing like a river breaking through ice. Lily lost herself in the rhythm of her thoughts, in the careful crafting of verses that gave shape to her pain. She didn't notice the library door opening, didn't hear the footsteps approaching, until a shadow fell across her page. "That's pretty good." Lily slammed the notebook shut, heart hammering against her ribs, as she looked up to find Thomas standing there, hands shoved into the pockets of his jeans. "Sorry," he said, taking a step back. "I didn't mean to scare you." "You didn't," Lily lied, her voice barely audible. "I was just thinking." Thomas shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "I saw the flyer for the talent show." Lily blinked. The Spring Talent Showcase had been announced that morning, posters plastered across the school in vibrant colors that promised glory and recognition to those brave enough to perform. Lily had walked past them without a second glance. The idea of standing on stage, of making herself visible when she'd spent years perfecting her invisibility, was unthinkable. "You should enter," Thomas said, the words tumbling out as if he'd been holding them back. "With your songs. I've heard you singing in the music room sometimes, when you think no one's around. You're really good." Heat rushed to Lily's cheeks, embarrassment mingling with an emotion she couldn't quite name. I can't." The very thought made her stomach twist into knots. "Just think about it," Thomas said, offering a small smile before retreating back into the maze of bookshelves. That afternoon, as Lily walked home through streets dappled with spring sunshine, Thomas's words echoed in her mind. The talent show, her songs. The thought was simultaneously terrifying and something else, something that felt dangerously like longing. Lily's home was a small apartment on the east side of town, a place that smelled of her mother's coffee and the lavender candles she burned to mask the lingering scent of cigarettes from the previous tenants. When Lily pushed open the door, she found her mother at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills and wearing the expression that meant money was tight again. "How was school, sweetheart?" Rachel Matthews looked up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. At 34, Rachel's face carried the gentle lines of someone who smiled easily despite life's hardships. She worked double shifts at the local diner to keep them afloat since Lily's father had walked out 3 years ago, leaving nothing but empty promises and occasional birthday cards behind. "Fine," Lily said automatically, dropping her backpack by the door. She hesitated, then added, "There's a talent show coming up at school." Rachel's face brightened. "Are you thinking of entering with your music?" Lily shrugged, suddenly fascinated by a loose thread on her sweater. "I don't know. Maybe." "Oh, Lily," Rachel said, rising from the table to wrap her daughter in a hug that smelled of coffee and hope. "Your voice is a gift. The world deserves to hear it." Later that night, tucked into her narrow bed with its faded quilt, Lily stared at the ceiling where glow-in-the-dark stars formed constellations of dreams. The talent show application form lay on her nightstand, blank and intimidating. Beside it sat her father's old guitar, the one thing he'd left behind that brought comfort rather than pain. Lily's fingers itched to pick it up, to find the melody that had been haunting her since Thomas's words in the library. Sleep eluded her, chased away by visions of standing on stage, of faces turned toward her, some sneering, some indifferent, some, like her mother's, filled with a hope she feared she couldn't fulfill. Around midnight, Lily surrendered to the restlessness, reaching for the guitar and cradling it against her chest, like an old friend. The first chords came softly, a gentle question asked of the darkness. By the time dawn painted her window with pale light, she had her answer, and a song that felt like truth. The next morning, before courage could desert her, Lily placed the completed application form on Miss Harriet's desk. "A songwriter," Miss Harriet murmured, her eyes warming as she read the form. "How wonderful, Lily. We don't get many original compositions." "It's probably not very good," Lily said quickly, already regretting her decision. Miss Harriet's hand covered hers briefly. "Art isn't about being good by someone else's standards. It's about being true. Remember that." As the days passed, Lily's secret became a living thing inside her chest, part terror, part wild anticipation. She practiced in whispers when the apartment was empty, her voice growing incrementally stronger each time. The only person she told was Thomas, who had somehow become a quiet presence at the edges of her days, offering silent solidarity during lunch periods and walking partway home with her after school. "The judges were announced today," he told her one afternoon, as they cut through the park where magnolias were just beginning to bloom. "Mr. Henderson from the music department, Principal Green, and," Lily prompted when he hesitated, "Douglas Blackwood." The name hit like a physical blow. Douglas Blackwood was a local celebrity of sorts, a former music producer who had retired to their small town after decades in the industry. He now wrote a scathing column in the regional newspaper, reviewing local arts and rarely finding anything worthy of praise. His standards were impossibly high, his criticisms brutally honest. He was, in short, the stuff of performers' nightmares. "Great," Lily whispered, suddenly feeling ill. "The talent show is in 12 days, and I'm going to be judged by the meanest critic in the state." "You could back out," Thomas suggested, though his tone made it clear he didn't think she should. Lily thought of her mother's proud smile when she'd mentioned entering, of the melody that had finally found its perfect form in the quiet hours of night. "No," she said softly. "I need to do this." The next week passed in a blur of classes, secret rehearsals, and increasingly frequent encounters with Vanessa, who seemed to sense something had changed. The bullying intensified. Snide comments in the hallway, a shoulder check that sent Lily sprawling across the floor one Tuesday, the discovery that someone had scrawled "loser" across her locker in permanent marker on Thursday. "I heard Silent Lily signed up for the talent show," Vanessa announced loudly in the cafeteria on Friday, her voice carrying across the room. "What are you going to do? Stand there and not talk? That's your specialty, right?" Laughter rippled across the tables. Lily kept her head down, pushing peas around her plate, the familiar burn of humiliation crawling up her neck. "She's probably going to sing," contributed Jeremy Collins from Vanessa's table. "My sister heard her practicing in the music room. Said she sounds like a dying cat." Fresh laughter, sharper this time. Lily's hand trembled around her fork. She hadn't known anyone was listening. The music room was supposed to be her safe place, the one corner of school where she could breathe freely. "I bet she doesn't even show up," Vanessa said with casual cruelty. "She'll chicken out like she does with everything else." The words followed Lily through the afternoon like persistent shadows, darkening the corners of her mind. By the time she reached home, doubt had taken root, spreading through her determination like cracks through glass. Her mother found her curled on her bed, tears soaking into her pillow. "Oh, sweetheart," Rachel said, sitting beside her and stroking her hair. "What happened?" Lily poured out the story in fragmented sentences, Vanessa's taunts, the laughter, the fear that had been building inside her. "Maybe they're right," she concluded, her voice muffled against the pillow. "Maybe I should just quit. I'm not brave enough for this." Rachel was quiet for a long moment, her hand still moving gently through Lily's hair. Then she reached for the worn Bible that sat on Lily's nightstand, a gift from Lily's grandmother before she passed away. "Did I ever tell you about my favorite verse?" she asked, turning pages with practiced ease. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7. "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." She set the Bible down, turning Lily's tear-stained face toward her. "Courage isn't about not feeling afraid, Lily. It's about feeling afraid and doing the thing anyway." That night, Lily added a new verse to her song, one about fear and courage and finding strength in unlikely places. As she played the final chords, something settled in her chest, a quiet certainty that felt like peace. The day of the talent show dawned bright and clear, as if the universe had polished every surface to a high shine. Backstage was chaos. Dancers stretching, musicians tuning instruments, the drama club's Romeo and Juliet frantically rehearsing lines. Lily stood in the midst of it all, clutching her father's guitar, feeling simultaneously invisible and terrifyingly exposed in her simple outfit, worn beige sweater over a dark t-shirt, dark shorts, and scuffed brown shoes that had seen better days. Through a gap in the curtains, she could see the judges taking their seats in the front row. Mr. Henderson looked benevolent behind his bushy beard. Principal Green was checking her clipboard with characteristic efficiency. And there, in the center seat, sat Douglas Blackwood, tall, imposing, with silver hair and the kind of face that seemed permanently arranged in an expression of skepticism. Even from a distance, Lily could feel the weight of his judgment. "Number 7, you're up next." the stage manager announced, checking her list. Lily Matthews, original composition? Lily nodded, unable to form words as panic clawed at her throat. The current act, a ninth-grade boy performing magic tricks, was receiving lukewarm applause. In moments, it would be her turn. Lily. The voice was soft, but steady. Thomas stood a few feet away, holding something in his outstretched hand. A simple wooden cross on a leather cord, small enough to fit in her palm, worn smooth as if from years of worried fingers. It was my grandfather's, Thomas explained. He said it reminded him that he was never alone, even when it felt like it. I thought, maybe you could borrow it. For luck. Lily took the cross, its weight reassuring against her palm. Thank you, she whispered, slipping the cord over her head and tucking the cross beneath her sweater where it rested against her heart. Number 7, Lily Matthews. The stage manager's voice cut through the moment like a knife. Thomas gave her an encouraging smile as Lily took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage, blinking in the sudden brightness of the spotlights. The audience was a sea of shadowy faces, unrecognizable and vast. For one terrible moment, Lily's mind went blank, her fingers frozen on the neck of the guitar. Then she felt it, the small weight of the cross against her chest, the quiet certainty that had come to her the night before. She closed her eyes, found the first chord, and began to play. The melody rose from her guitar like a living thing, filling the auditorium with notes that spoke of loneliness and longing. When Lily opened her mouth to sing, her voice emerged surprisingly strong, carrying the words she had crafted in secret moments. When you look at me, what do you see? A shadow, a ghost, a nobody. But if you listened, really listened, you might hear the song inside of me. Words can be weapons, sharper than knives, cutting down dreams before they can rise. But I'm still standing, still breathing, still here, and today my voice will overcome fear. As she sang, something extraordinary happened. The fear receded, replaced by a sense of rightness, of being exactly where she was meant to be. Lily's eyes opened, finding her mother in the third row, tears streaming down her face, finding Thomas at the back of the auditorium, watching with quiet pride, finding even Vanessa, her mocking smile fading into something uncertain. The chorus swelled, Lily's voice growing stronger with each line. This is me, this is all of me, broken and healing, and finally free. You can laugh, you can judge, you can walk away, but you can't take the truth of what I say. When she reached the verse about courage, about finding strength in the midst of fear, Lily's gaze settled on Douglas Blackwood. The notorious judge was leaning forward in his seat, his expression unreadable, but his eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that might have been intimidating if Lily hadn't already found her rhythm, her truth. For 3 minutes and 40 seconds, Lily Matthews was no longer invisible. She poured everything into the song, every hurt, every hope, every silent prayer for something better. As the final notes faded, there was a moment of complete silence, a collective held breath that seemed to stretch into eternity. Then from the front row, Douglas Blackwood rose to his feet. His face, usually so stern, had transformed, softened by what might have been tears caught in the stage lights. He began to applaud, slowly at first, then with increasing vigor. One by one, others joined him, until the entire auditorium was on its feet, the applause washing over Lily in waves. Backstage, legs shaking, Lily was enveloped in her mother's fierce embrace. "I am so proud of you," Rachel whispered, her voice thick with emotion. So proud. The remaining acts passed in a blur. Lily sat with Thomas in the wings, watching as dancers whirled and pianists played and the drama club enacted their scene. When it came time for the judges' deliberation, Lily found she didn't care about winning. She had already claimed a victory more precious than any trophy. "Before we announce the winners," Principal Green said when the judges returned, "Mr. Blackwood would like to say a few words." Douglas Blackwood approached the microphone, his tall figure commanding immediate attention. "I've been judging talent shows for 12 years, he began, his deep voice resonating through the auditorium. "I've seen technical perfection. I've seen flashy performances designed to impress. What I rarely see is raw truth, the kind that bypasses all defenses and speaks directly to the heart." He paused, scanning the audience. "Today, a young girl reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. Not because it can be perfect, but because it can be true." His gaze found Lily in the wings. "Lily Matthews, your song wasn't just good, it was necessary. Thank you for your courage." When the winners were announced, Lily taking first place, the dancers second, the drama club third, it felt almost secondary to the moment that followed. Douglas Blackwood approached Lily privately, holding a business card between weathered fingers. "I used to run a summer music program for young songwriters," he explained, his gruff voice gentler than she'd imagined possible. "Stopped doing it years ago. Got too cynical, I suppose. But if you're interested, I'd like to restart it. With you as my first student." Lily stared at the card, then at the man holding it. "Why me?" Blackwood's smile transformed his face, erasing years of practiced cynicism. "Because authentic voices are rare, Lily Matthews, and they deserve to be nurtured." Later, as the auditorium emptied and the excitement ebbed, Lily found herself face to face with Vanessa in the hallway. The other girl stood awkwardly, her usual confidence nowhere to be seen. "Your song," Vanessa began, then stopped, seeming to struggle with words for the first time in Lily's memory. It was really good." She hesitated, then added in a rush, "And I'm sorry for everything." Before Lily could respond, Vanessa had turned and hurried away, leaving Lily to wonder at the strange alchemy that had transformed this day from one of dread to one of unexpected healing. Thomas was waiting for her outside, sitting on the school steps in the golden light of late afternoon. Lily sat beside him, carefully removing the cross from around her neck and placing it in his palm. "Keep it," he said, closing her fingers around it. "I think it found the right home." Lily smiled, the small wooden cross warm in her hand. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." As they walked home through streets bathed in sunset light, Lily felt different, not because the world had changed, but because she had. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Vanessa's apology might not translate to friendship. The whispers might not stop entirely, but something fundamental had shifted, a foundation laid for whatever came next. That night, before sleep claimed her, Lily added a final verse to her song, one about transformation and forgiveness and the unexpected ways that truth could heal. As the words flowed from her pencil, she thought of Douglas Blackwood's transformed face, of Vanessa's stumbling apology, of Thomas's quiet strength. She thought of her mother's favorite verse about fear and power and love. Mostly, though, she thought about her own voice, how it had trembled at first, then grown steady, filling spaces that had seemed too vast to navigate, how it had carried her truth into the light, where it could finally be heard. 7 glow-in-the-dark stars formed the Big Dipper above her bed, guiding her thoughts toward dreams. Lily traced their pattern with her eyes, remembering something Miss Harriet had said weeks ago. Art isn't about being good by someone else's standards. It's about being true. In the quiet of her room, with the cross resting on her nightstand, and tomorrow waiting just beyond the horizon, Lily Matthews smiled and whispered her own truth into the darkness. "I am heard."